Zeus here, and today we're going to be talking about section 1 of the breaking of the day. This will be on the Iliad, the apocalypse of Achilles. The series, The Breaking of the Day, is going to be very interested in the question of what defines Western literature and Western thought. Now, I know the moment we discuss the monolithic Western civilization, we inevitably leave out countless dissenters, minorities, and points deserving nuance. There can be something dangerous once you start talking about a canon, as we've learned from Derrida, and certainly if there's going to be any talk about a literary canon of any kind, it needs to be an open one that's always ready for revisions or additions that may have been overlooked. But at the same time, I think it would be foolish to ignore that there are differences between the thinking of Christianity, Hinduism, Islam, America, China, neoliberalism, progressivism. There are real differences, and that's also why pluralism is what it is. Pluralism is real and substantive. It is not, as someone perhaps like a James Hunter would say, it's not shallow. It's not just the stuff of a tourist moving between one country and another, where it really doesn't matter because it's all ultimately the same. It's just different in terms of shallow affairs like food and clothing. No, differences are deep. And if we're going to understand the world we live in, it can help to focus in on, say, the East or to focus in on the West and try to figure out those differences, because maybe if we can get at those essential differences, we can begin to understand who we are, what our cognitive biases are, what our mental models are, what our assumptions about reality are, so maybe we can live better and operate better within pluralism. Because right now, I think by pretending like substantive differences are not there, deep cultural differences are not there, which also I will note is precisely why pluralism can be so beautiful and good, because there are real differences. But if we deny those differences having an essential element, then it's very likely, unfortunately, that pluralism will not work out so well, because we'll all be living in a kind of bad faith, and we won't have real substantive discussions about real differences, what James Hunter calls a substantive democracy. So that's kind of an overview on why I think it's justified to look at Western literature. And to start, I think we need a good way to sort of think about a tension of the West is this paradoxical tension between freedom and order. It's something that you'll see wrestled with throughout a lot of the literature, a lot of the thinking. To use that language of Philip Reef, the tension between givens and releases. And another paradoxical tension that I think is important to the West is between Athens and Jerusalem. And as we'll later discuss, I think Hamlet is a very good embodiment of that tension, because he is caught between Greek and Christian values. In the Greek, revenge is good. In Christianity, revenge is bad. So he lives in a Christian society, and he's been called by his father, who's dressed like the god Apollo, the god of war, to take revenge on his uncle. So according to Greek values, that would be moral, but according to Christian values, that would be wrong. So what is Hamlet to do? He's kind of torn down the middle. He's caught in the middle of this Nietzschean transvaluation of values. And that's the kind of tension that we really want to explore moving forward. And I think the word tension is also very, very important. You don't have a unity, a monolith, a monad, I guess is the word, a unity between thinking. And a lot of great literature will show that. It brings to mind some of the work of Cadell Last that we described, the necessity of a philosophy of the gaps. It brings to mind Martha Nussbaum, the fragility of goodness on tragedy, and things like that. But moving on to the Iliad, to focus on that, there's this very interesting section voiced by Zeus, who is above all, whose wisdom rules the world, as we learn in Book 1, line 207, the God who rules the world, and so on. And he's talking about Achilles, who is being moved into rage. And he says something along the lines of where he says, "Now with his rage inflamed for his friend's death, I fear he'll raise the walls against the will of fate." And what's so fascinating about this point is that Zeus is speaking as if Achilles has the ability to defy fate. And there's something about fate that seems to hold the universe together, and even be something that seemingly holds the gods together, where not even the gods can defy fate. But there's some ambiguity there that we're going to have to explore. And there's something where the great stakes of the Rage of Achilles is that he can seemingly tear down the whole cosmos, that it's not merely the Rage of Achilles being a great violence on the battlefield, but he has an ability to defy fate, which seems to be unique, that not all humans have this, but in Achilles being a sort of demigod, he seems to have an ability to do something unique that maybe not even the gods can do, or if they can do it, won't do it, because it would take them down as well. But Achilles, in his rage, may not be paying attention to that and just be willing to burn everything down. And it actually makes me think a little bit of German nihilism with Leo Strauss, but that's another topic. Anyway, in Book 16, there's another section where Zeus is being spoken to, where he's thinking about interfering on the war. And he says, do as you please, Zeus, but none of the deathless gods will ever praise you. And I tell you this, take it to heart, I urge you, if you send Sartian down, I'm not pronouncing that right, forgive, home, living still beware, then surely some other god will want to sweep his own son clear of the heavy fighting too. So what's being described is that even though Zeus has the power to save the individual he wants to save, Hera is telling him that if he defies fate, that's going to throw order off. It's going to go into chaos. And here we start to see that Western tension that we've been describing between freedom and order, and where if you have too much freedom, you have chaos. And yet we have an image of Zeus that suggests that he controls fate, despite all of the language that he can't defy it, where it says, then Father Zeus held out his sacred golden scales. In them he placed two fates of death that lay men low. I think Book 8, lines 81 and 82. So which is it? Does fate control Zeus, or does Zeus control fate? Did Zeus create fate, and then he choose to submit himself to it? What's going on? There seems to be something very complex going on with the relation between the gods and fate, but they're very concerned about Achilles defying fate. So what is happening there? And the paper this is based on will list out some other examples of this. And again, it seems strange. There's language of Achilles being fated to die, and yet it seems like there's a particular way he needs to die. Why does it matter? It seems to matter very much. Why is that? Because it seems to be that fate is the order that holds the universe together, almost kind of deterministic. And if it doesn't work like it's supposed to, then the whole thing will come crashing down. I think this is really important, because it's going to, if we follow someone like Feuerbach, who's going to describe our relation to divinity as being a projection of ourselves, then the relationship that we view between the fates and gods, the order of the universe and God, is going to have an impact about how we think of our own relationship between order and freedom, where perhaps if we think the gods are bound by order, well, then we ourselves are going to view ourselves bound by order, but that may make us susceptible to totalitarianism. If we think that there is no order, that it's all just an arbitrary expression of God's will, then God can just feel arbitrary, and his choices can feel arbitrary, and that can take away the sort of credence of what the gods do. So there's a big question here on the very way that we decide to interpret the relationship of the gods in the Iliad to fate will have an impact perhaps on the nature of the society that we create and that we operate in. And it's also, as we sort of describe these a little more, it's important to realize there are these very interesting trade-offs. And trade-offs and tensions and tragedies and ironies and things like that are very important categories for understanding Western thought and literature moving forward. So if we follow the premise that society is deeply shaped by religion, that religion, there are some, sociologists that go so far to say that it's homo religioso, that human beings are inherently religious, then the society's view of the gods will have a big impact on how the social order develops. So here's the questions. Are the gods controlled by the cosmic order? That's possibility one. Possibility two, do they control the cosmic order? Possibility three is that they're controlled by the cosmic order by choice, meaning the gods could defy the cosmic order, but they choose not to. Or four, are controlled by the cosmic order by choice for the sake of humanity. So let me explain a little more. So the third option is they're controlled by the cosmic order by choice for their own sakes, and they don't really care what happens to humanity. Or option four is they're controlled by the cosmic order by choice for the sake of humanity solely, meaning that they don't benefit necessarily by being controlled by the cosmic order, but they let themselves do it for the sake of humanity. Now, if one, the gods are forced by the cosmic order to stop Achilles from destroying the cosmic order, meaning Achilles never had a real chance to destroy the cosmic order, only an apparent one. So if the cosmic order ultimately is in control, there's really no stakes in the Iliad. It seems like the gods think that Achilles can defy things. Achilles thinks he can defy fate, but he really can't. But if it's a situation, so the stakes of the Iliad would be quite strange. There wouldn't be any stakes, really. It'd all be an illusion. If it's option 2, the gods control the cosmic order, which means it makes little sense that they are worried about Achilles, because he couldn't destroy the cosmic order if the gods didn't want him to so destroy it. So both options 1 and 2 probably are not what's going on in the Iliad. They don't seem to follow very well. If 3, then the gods are using humans as pawns in a game for their own self-preservation. And if 4, then the gods are trying to stop humanity from destroying themselves for humanity's sake. Because regardless what happens to fate, the gods will endure. Beyond all their egotistical personalities, their involvement in the Trojan War is ultimately a selfless act. If 1, the people, so as you can see, those are the kind of 4 options by which we can interpret what's going on with the gods in the Iliad. And if, indeed, society formulates relative to its religious perspectives, then it's going to have a big impact on how society forms relative to its relationship to how it views the gods and their power and how omnipotent they are relative to order. So, on the question of how society may form, if it's number 1, if it's the case that the gods are controlled by the cosmic order, then the people are likely to be generally passive because, we don't really have much freedom. Everything just kind of happens and we can't really stop it. So you're probably going to have a very passive society. If 2, people are likely to be Gnostic and focus exclusively on divine matters, disregarding Earth. If it is the case that the gods control the cosmic order, then the gods are everything. And that what happens on Earth really doesn't matter. Nothing matters but the gods, because they control everything. And so you may end up with a dualistic, Gnostic, maybe even Cartesian society. If 3, where the gods are controlled by the cosmic order by choice for the sake of themselves, then the gods are using humans as pawns in a game for their own self-preservation. It's just for them. It doesn't really matter. And also, what will happen is that the people of the society are likely to be more nihilistic and distrusting of divinity. If the gods are in it for themselves and they've created this fate that humanity is bound to, that they choose to bind themselves because they want to, then there's not really much reason to have faith in the gods. It's quite strange. But this brings us to number 4, which I would submit to you is what Western thought dialectically tends to move toward through its history. That divinity cares about humanity and humanity matters. And this is where we start alluding to a sort of incarnation or Jesus Christ coming to die for the world. In fact, humanity almost has a power over divinity by divinity's own choice. But paradoxically, humanity is ultimately powerless and only has this supposed power because divinity so allows it. This creates a strange mixture of pride, individuality, humility, and being part of something bigger than ourselves. A strange mixture that is going to be hinted here in Homer, and that will develop and come into focus as Western civilization advances. The 4th option, where the gods are controlled by a cosmic order by choice for the sake of humanity solely, is a very interesting theological innovation. And a society that organizes under that idea is going to develop very uniquely. And again, if we follow Feuerbach, where divinity is somehow a projection of human beings, but also arguably, if Karl Barth will say, it projects back onto us, then the formation of the West is going to reflect this idea that order is something that we freely submit to because it is best. Order is something that we freely submit to because it is best, and maybe it even makes us more free if we do it. But that is, of course, a dialectical tension between order and freedom that you can't simply erase. If you get all freedom, things fall apart. If you get all order, things fall apart. But what does it mean to live in tension? What are the different facets and forms that this tension can manifest, and what is that going to look like? And I submit to you that we will find that Western literature has a lot of examples of how that tension can be personified, and also models according to those characters that we will explore, whether it be Don Quixote, Joseph K., even Anton from No Country for Old Men. We will be provided maps by which we can try to understand what it means to be a human being in the world today. For more by O.G. Rose, please visit ogrose.com, Facebook, YouTube, all of these things, likes, subscriptions, follows, shares, all of that is very helpful. This has been the first section of the Breaking of the Day. Thank you for your time. It has been a joy.